Welcome to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower, brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/your20-minute podcast. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Now, here's your host, David Brower.
Thanks, Alan. This is David Brower with your 20-minute podcast. Our special guest today is Pastor Robert Thibodeau, who goes by Bob, been in ministry for 25 years, and he's the author of the new book, Blind Faith. Well, greetings from, I guess you're in Maryland, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Baltimore, Maryland.
All right. I'm in beautiful downtown Colorado. So
yeah.
Good to talk to you, Bob. So tell us about this book a little bit. How did it come about, and a little bit more about your background? I know you were in the Army. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Retired police. Thank you for your service.
Yep.
And along the way, in your spare time, you were a pastor for 25 years. So how did all that work out? How did that all transpire?
Well, actually, I've been in the ministry in some form or fashion for 25 years. I was assistant pastor at several churches. In 2001, we moved out here to Baltimore from Texas, and in the process of doing that, having not a difficult time finding a church, but just not one that we felt comfortable in. And
sure.
So we started our own church, and
wow.
That lasted for a couple of years until I got promoted in the police department aspect, and that started taking more of my time that I felt personally that I could not give the parishioners as much
Sure.
dedication is what I should be able to be a pastor. So we merged our church with another friend of mine. And, I guess it's kind of like, being a judge or a senator or something. Once you have that title, it just sticks. So everyone just kept calling me Pastor Bob.
It does. Coaches are the same way.
Yep.
I mean, I've known this coach for years. It's been retired for years, and I will never call him anything else but coach.
Amen. Well,
so I totally get that.
Well, in my ministry, the way I minister the word, I like telling stories. Jesus was a storyteller.
Yep.
And, I just found it always interesting to dig into the characters a little bit. I've got stories on Elijah, and I mean, just, all these different characters. And this one day, as I was studying the scriptures about Jesus putting the mud on the blind man's eyes and then told him, go wash in the pool of Siloam. And it just, let's look at this. We always study, the miracle and all that.
Yeah.
What about this guy? I mean, where'd he come from? And what's his story? And, it says right there that he's been blind from birth.
Right.
And so that means he's never been able to contribute anything to society. He's and his family, now he's old, and his family, has been having to take care of him. They take him every morning to drop him off at the gate. They go to work, they come back, pick him up on the way home. And his job is to sit there and collect as much as he can from, offerings, alms, from people going into the temple. And that's his contribution to the family to take care of him.
Wow.
And, he's been blind, and he knows other blind people as well. And he keeps hearing these stories about this guy named Jesus that heals blind people too. And, talk about blind Bartimaeus, that's probably a buddy of his. I mean, Jerusalem isn't that big.
Right.
He knows, the people in the same condition he's in. Bartimaeus comes over, hey, yeah, this Jesus guy, he's great, and he's like, golly, he's probably bugging his family. Hey, take me to find this Jesus guy. Find out where he's preaching at. I want to go. And we're not wasting our time to take you all the way over there. And, there's crowds of people over there. You're never going to get to see them anyway. Just, forget about it.
Yeah.
And,
dude, you're blind. You can't see him.
Right. So, he wants to see him, but he just doesn't have anybody to take him over there. So every day he's sitting here.
Sure.
Just one day he hears, a little bit of a commotion with a crowd going by. And he's wondering, what's going on? Then he hears the same comment or question that, he's heard his whole life. Who sinned, this guy in a prior life or his parents, that caused him to be born blind? And, he's heard that his whole life.
Sure.
This time he hears a different response. He goes, he didn't sin nor his parents. He's like this, to give God glory. And he's probably thinking about that like, wow, that's a weird response. I haven't heard that one before. And about that time,
right.
This guy's putting mud on his eyes. Now, if it was me, I'd have probably been swinging, okay?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was visualizing. I'm knocking you out, dude.
Exactly. I may be blind, but I can still hit you,
Right.
And but he's told, just there's something about what's going on. Jesus probably, with that soothing voice, tell him, just chill out for a minute. And he puts this mud on his eye and said, now go wash in the pool of Siloam. Well, where he was at, going in at the Gate Beautiful, that is on the other side of town. Now, there's a pool right around the corner from where they're at. Jesus didn't tell them to go there. He told them to go all the way across Jerusalem to the other side of town to the pool.
Wow.
Now, remember, he doesn't have anybody to take him there.
Well, I was just going to ask, how did, it's not like he had GPS or something.
That's right. And the pools on each end of the temple complex were what we would call baptismal pools. They're just ceremonial pools.
Okay.
People would change in, some churches had the baptismal garments.
Right.
So people would change in these garments, and they would walk down into the water, go underwater, come back up as a ceremonial cleansing before they went into the temple area to give their offerings. And, because he was blind, that's a maimed type of condition, he was never allowed in the temple. He'd never been in the temple.
Yeah.
So he'd never been in the ceremonial pool, right? Well, he's got to walk all the way across town. He probably goes 3, 4, 10 steps and stops and asks him which way to go. How do I get there? And he's had to answer all the way across town, where are you going? Why are you going over there? Why are you going to the pool? You can't get into the temple.
Well, and does he still have mud in his eyes? That'd be the other question, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then they say, what's that on your face? How?
Yeah.
Who put it on there? Why did he do that? Hey, you're crazy. Well, and somebody probably, well, come on, I'll take you a little way. I got to go this way. And, so he slowly makes his way across town and finally gets to where the pool is at. And there's a long line, naturally, as there would be going into the temple. And, they're asking him the same questions. Who put mud on your face? Why are you here? You're not supposed to be in this line. They're not going to let you in the temple.
Sure.
And all the way, and he's still giving the testimony. Every step he's going by faith. Jesus told me to go to the pool Siloam and I would see.
Wow.
And that's his testimony. Every step, every time somebody helps him down to the next corner of the block, they're asking him the same questions over and over. What this is doing is reinforcing that spirit of faith in him.
Well, and the other thing, and I think it's pun intended, blind faith.
Exactly. That's the name of the book.
Right? Exactly. So, you got me captivated, man. Keep going.
Well, he gets to the pool Siloam, and like I said, there's this long line there, and they're teasing him, ridiculing him, and mocking him. But when it comes time for his to step down into the pool, I can see every person in that area, their necks craning around the corners. They want to see what's going to happen.
Exactly.
And he goes down under the water, and you can just picture this as he goes down underneath the water and then washes that mud off his face. And by faith, he's opening his eyes. And as he comes up out of the water, the first thing he sees is that big, blue, beautiful sky and the temple, all the, great ornamented decorations of the temple. Remember, he's never seen any of this before.
Right.
And he lets out a scream that could be heard all the way across town. The people in the pool area, they're going wild.
Right.
And now what happens next is there's such a commotion, the temple guards come down to, quell all this disturbance. What's going on down here? And they say, this guy was blind, he can see. And this guy's just going, he's
right.
going nuts right now. And hugging people, and everybody's hugging him. So the Jewish law says if there is a miracle that's taken place, they must be brought before the priest for them to verify the miracle. That's how he ends up in front of the temple priests. And they're like, what happened? And he goes, this guy named Jesus put mud on my face and told me to go across town. I did it, and now I can see. And they're like, wait a minute, the same Jesus that we've been hearing about? And, they start ridiculing,
right.
Trying to corner him into this, call his parents. You say he was born blind. How can he see? Well, they don't want to get kicked out of the temple and excommunicated. They say, hey, he's old enough, ask him. He can tell you what happened.
Yeah.
And, they ask him, and he gives the same thing. And they ask him again. He says, why do you keep asking this question? Do you want to be his disciple too? Oh, that did it. Boom. You're out.
Wow.
Excommunicated.
Yeah.
Kicked out of the temple. I mean, the guy has never been in a temple before, and his first day that you can see, he gets kicked out. And that's basically ostracized from Jewish society.
Sure.
And, now he's like wandering around, doesn't know what to do. Jesus hears about it, finds him, and just reinforces. Now, remember, he didn't see Jesus.
Right.
Right. When Jesus sees him, he walks up to him, and the guy's probably looking at him and says, what do you want? And as soon as Jesus started talking to him, he recognized the voice.
Right.
And he said, fell at his feet, Lord, and he said, just go on and tell everybody the testimony, and it'll be all right. And that's towards the end of the book. But
wow.
Main story is looking at that story from the perspective of the blind guy,
right,
instead of from the perspective of the disciples or Jesus or anybody else looking at it. It's his perspective, what he went through. And that's
I think what's fascinating about that, I mean, there's lots of things fascinating about that story, but one thing about the Bible, it's full of metaphors, and which makes it a most interesting read, because every time you read the same verse 10 times, you get 10 different perceptions,
Exactly.
But what's interesting about your story with this guy is, there's some people, a lot of people out there that have faith, have blind faith, don't have any faith. And what an interesting way to introduce that in such a miraculous way, if you will, to let people know, what the possibilities are. I mean, you don't have to be blind to see. You can, that's a line out of Amazing Grace,
Amen.
So, right? And so, just capture it. Just be open to going, what's that about?
Yep, that's right. Exactly right. And that's, I preached that sermon from that perspective, and that's one of the most popular ones, and that I just felt led to put it in book form so it could be shared with anyone who wanted.
Good for you. So, and you've got stories either on paper or on your mind or wherever about other characters in the Bible. Do you have other books coming out as well?
Oh yeah, I have one that I'm finishing up. I was hoping to have done by year's end. It'll probably be February before it's done. It's called the Samika of Jesus, and that is a long story. I know it's only 20 minutes. It'd take me that long just to introduce the story, but
I know, right?
In a nutshell, when I'll just use one scripture.
Okay.
When Jesus said, "Take my yoke upon you," remember that verse? Okay.
Sure.
Everybody thinks about the yoke on a collar, with the bowls or whatever.
Right.
But in actuality, the yoke. Now, Jesus was called a rabbi. Everybody, rabbi, right? Teacher.
Right.
Why did they recognize him as a rabbi? So this book is looking at what the traditional Jewish boy would be growing up to be. Today we say baseball players, NFL players, or whatever. Back then, the Jewish boy wanted to be a rabbi.
Right.
But out of 1,000, they'd only pick about 10.
Fascinating.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's testing, like the kindergarten test to get into school.
Right.
By 5 or 6 years old, the kid had to memorize the book of Leviticus.
Wow.
Okay. Now, I don't know about you, but I just failed kindergarten. Okay. And
yeah, and big time. I can't even spell Leviticus, let alone read it all the way through.
To graduate elementary school at age 12 and then become a student of a rabbi, they had to have the first 5 books of the Torah, memorize the first 5 books of the Bible,
right,
and be able to carry on a conversation with it, answer questions about it, keep the conversation centered around the Word, which you don't hear anything about Jesus' upbringing until age 12. And where do we find him at in the temple?
Correct.
In the temple, and they said,
yeah. And he didn't get there by accident. He wasn't a blind
right.
guy with mud in his eyes. I mean, he did the work. He had to do the work.
Yeah, and what I think happened, and this is in the book, is my what they call writers, I'm talking about liberties with the storytelling.
Right,
okay?
Right, yeah.
The wise men that brought the gold, frankincense, and myrrh, in today's values is like $3 million.
Right.
So Jesus' parents went from being laborers to millionaires with these guys that brought them what God provided for the upbringing of Jesus, probably with private tutors and taking care of the family and all that. So he had the best instructors around. Right. And we don't hear anything else about
it. The best money could buy, as they say, right?
And we don't hear anything else after he was in the temple complex answering questions, and they were all amazed at his ability. That was just verifying that he was qualified to go on to be rabbi training.
Yeah.
Now, baptism is not something John the Baptist invented. That was throughout Israel. Every time there was a life change, you get engaged, you get married,
right.
All that, they would baptize you. Well, rabbis at graduation time had to be baptized in order to go, be classified as a rabbi. So where did Jesus end up? Getting baptized. All right?
By John the Baptist.
Exactly. And the rabbis, if we look at college today, if you're studying to be an accountant, you don't go down to the hospital one day and say, I think I want to try my hand at open heart surgery. Let me in, somebody. Right?
Right.
No, you were trained as an accountant. That's all you can do is accounting. Well, it's the same thing with different things with rabbis. There was rabbis that specialized in doing the offerings, and there were rabbis that specialized in doing counseling. There were rabbis that specialized in doing teaching, rabbis that specialized in accounting and all that other stuff. And you could only teach what your rabbi taught you, period. Okay?
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Yeah.
And that teaching is called their yoke.
Okay.
All right. So Jesus is teaching.
So yet another metaphor.
Exactly. Jesus.
Yeah.
Every generation, about once every 100 years or so, there was a special rabbi that would come around that had such an understanding of the biblical concepts, and he understood it all, and he was, he could give great analogies, and he just had such a great understanding that he was recognized at his rabbi graduation as having what is called samika. And samika,
I was going to ask you what that word was, yeah.
Samika is permission or authority to teach your own line of teaching. You create it yourself, and you have permission to teach your followers that line of teaching. Now, in order to receive samika, there had to be 2 witnesses to give verbal testimony to this fact at your baptism. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we see Jesus coming down to be baptized by John the Baptist.
Right.
What does John the Baptist say? Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. Witness number 1.
Right.
Jesus goes down and remember Jesus, John argued, hey, I need to be baptized by you. Jesus said, no, we have to do this to fulfill biblical things. Right. So down he goes. He comes up out of the water. He's still only got 1 witness. What happens? God himself verbally gives confirmation.
Wow.
Right? Behold my son, in whom I'm well pleased. Right? Witness number 2, he now has samika. What does all the crowds following Jesus mean? They heard somebody has samika.
Yeah.
Remember, it's only like once every 100 years. And what do they say? He doesn't teach like the other rabbis teach. He teaches as one having authority. That word authority is translated samika.
Wow.
All right. And then Jesus told his disciples, he goes, take my yoke upon you. Take my teaching. What's Jesus' teaching? Everywhere he went, the love of God.
Right.
And as a disciple of Jesus, that's the only thing we can teach is the love of God, because we can only teach what our rabbi.
Man, that is like over the top good stuff. I got to tell you, I would think, and I don't know this for sure whether this is in your plan or not, but I would think each one of your books would just be an amazing Bible study.
That's what they're designed to do. Hopefully, they'd be used in that fashion. That'd be a dream of mine.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, we're about out of time, so I want to give folks your contact information and so they can learn more about you and about your book and your podcast. You have a Kingdom Crossroads podcast, right?
That's correct, yeah, www.kcrpodcast.com.
Okay. And your website is evangelismradio.com?
That's for the radio station. We have an online Christian radio station that plays 24 hours a day.
Okay.
We now have 50 different broadcasters under contract for
it. Right.
And it's free. It's offering basis. Some people, they can't send anything. That's all right. We still put them on.
Okay.
But we make it affordable. That's evangelismradio.com. My personal website is FTFM for Freedom Through Faith Ministries.com. I'm sorry, .org.
.org. So FTFM.org.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, cool. Bob Thibodeau, fascinating. I mean, that was like lightning fast 20 minutes, man. We could have went on for a while.
Amen.
So, first of all, thank you for your service. Thank you for your faith. Thank you for your writing ability to share the gospel. And I wish you a Merry Christmas.
Oh, you too, brother. I appreciate you having me on. I enjoyed it.
All right, likewise. Take care, Bob.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Your 20-minute podcast with David Brower has been brought to you by Audible. You can listen to any of David's podcasts anywhere podcasts can be found, including iHeartRadio, the Spotify mobile app, and at davidbrowervo.com/your20-minute podcast. Until next time, thanks for listening.